As we wrap up 2025 and get ready for 2026, I don't know if it's just me, but I start thinking about how did 2025 go and what's 2026 look like? Specifically, what are the rich doing? And we have our one and only Jason Hartman today, featured speaker on day one of our Vegas event. And he's been working with the Richie Rich for more than 3 decades. So I thought I'd just ask him, Jason, what have you seen the rich do over the last 3+ decades that average folks just don't? I was curious what you've seen.
Yeah, Michael, that's a great question. And, one of the things the rich definitely do is they understand currencies and the
Mm,
value of currencies and the value of, what is a relative value. They understand the difference, I guess, between the name of something and the value of something. That would be maybe a good way to put it, because rich people understand that they need to take advantage of inflation. They need to take advantage of out of control government spending, of ridiculous monetary and fiscal policies that cause inflation. And they just understand that game of inflation induced debt destruction, of paying your debts back in cheaper
yeah.
dollars over time. They understand the value of making your money work for you.
Mm,
They understand the value of structures and entities. For example, I have a captive insurance company myself that I set up a few years ago. So my own company provides insurance to my businesses.
mm,
And in doing that, it gets some great tax benefits. They understand the best tax benefit of all, which is depreciation on real estate. Nothing beats that. That's the holy grail of tax benefits, because it's a non-cash write-off. In other words, what I mean there, and you know what I'm going to say, but not all of the audience does, is that normally when you want a tax deduction, you need to spend some money, right? If you have a business, you could hire a new employee, and what you pay them is deductible. You could buy some new equipment or do some more advertising. That's all deductible, and that's great. But with real estate, you can deduct fake losses,
mhm.
phantom losses that aren't really even losses. You could be making lots of money. Your property value could be going up. You could have positive cash flow, yet still get a tax deduction. I mean, this is what the rich do. They don't
Right.
pay a lot of their income, or sometimes they don't pay any of it, to the government, right? They
Yeah.
keep it because they do what the government incentivizes them to do.
Yeah, and if you add on top of that, thanks to the big beautiful bill, accelerated
Yeah,
depreciation, lots of rich folks are, and I know many of them, they're looking at making a real estate purchase at the end of the year, making sure it gets into service and then doing
yeah,
accelerated depreciation. So,
yeah.
definitely understand the tax game for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You understand that, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And, they don't spend money real frivolously. I just was reading an article over the weekend, and we all know this story. This is nothing new. It wasn't new to me, but it just reminded me of it. The world's first billionaire, J. Paul Getty. I mean, he
Mm,
was a cheapskate. Now I don't recommend being a cheapskate, but, you need to be smart with your money. I
right.
mean, I remember one time I was at dinner with a friend and client of mine, and I was looking up where I was in a different city, and I was looking up my hotel where I'm going to stay that night on my phone, right? And he says, Jason, this is why you're rich, because you use, I use Hotwire and Priceline, right? I like to stay at nice hotels, but I want to get a good value. And I think that's a good distinction too. Understand the difference between price and value. When I shop for things, and I must admit I'm a bit of a consumer, probably too much so. I do like to buy things. It's
Mm,
not exactly the greatest habit, but I do buy stuff a lot. But I don't buy based on price. I buy
mm,
based on value. I'll pay a high price for something as long as it's got a high value. Whereas some people just shop on price, and I don't think
right.
that's really the smartest way to do it.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, again, and I'll use the cash flow quadrant just because I think a lot of people know what that is.
Yeah,
In the cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki, there are kind of 4 boxes, right? There's the employee, small
yeah,
business, big business, investor. And the thing that always troubled me is it felt like you had to be a business of some kind to be
right.
wealthy.
Yep.
And I don't think most of us are wired that way. So I'm curious, when you think of the wealthy, are most of them business owners, or can they be employees and investors? Like, is that a thing or no?
Well, that's a very interesting question you raise, Michael, because being a real estate investor is being a business owner. Okay.
Ah,
When
okay.
your real estate portfolio, look, the IRS has you file a Schedule E on every property you own.
Correct.
Okay. Because that property has a P&L of its own. It's a business. Okay.
Okay.
Even if you don't set it up inside of, say, an LLC, for example, it's still thought of as a business. Okay. So even if you're an employee and you work for, a big corporation, if you own rental properties, you are a business owner. You are an entrepreneur. You're a real estate entrepreneur. And thinking of yourself that way is the first great step you take. But then using entities and structures, I'll just give you an example. I want to be careful how I say this because I've seen people make mistakes with it too. Okay. So here's the first thing I want to set up with this whole entity discussion of legal entities, of asset protection, tax strategies. A lot of people put the cart before the horse. Don't do that. Okay.
Yeah.
They get so mired into this whole like discussion of, oh, I got to set up 39 entities before I can buy a property. Don't be that guy. That's like the person who's been to every seminar, every conference, and they never bought anything. They never did any investing. Okay. They use the I have to learn more as an excuse not to start.
Mm.
That's one very wrong thing to do. The people who win the game are the people who are in the game. Okay. You got to be in the game. Okay. That said, using entities and structures, you can do a lot of really cool things with your tax planning, with your asset protection. And it's like, look, we cloned a sheep, we've cloned dogs, we have not supposedly yet cloned a person. Okay. But when you set up entities, LLCs, corporations, trusts, you're essentially cloning yourself legally in a legal sense. It's like you're creating a bunch of little soldiers that can go out into the world and do business on your behalf. And if something goes badly, it won't sink your ship. Okay. So it is important that's one of the ways the rich think, right?
Yeah.
Think of
Very, very.
firewalls, think of entities, think of structures. Like my captive insurance company, that's a great structure. I have a cash balance plan within one of my companies, so I can just massively defer large amounts of money in tax. One year I stuck almost $500,000 in that plan.
Wow.
So you want to figure out all the ways that you can keep your money and keep it working. Once you give it to the government, it's not working for you anymore.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. And again, the other thing that I've seen with rich people, I'm curious if you agree or disagree, is in my experience, most rich people got rich in one vehicle, right? Their chosen thing, whether it's, it could be stocks, crypto, classic cars. I don't care what it is, but
Well, the
most
crypto
people,
people this week aren't very rich anymore.
yeah,
So
they're half rich. They're down 40%
they
rich.
gave like 30-40% of the money back already.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
But the idea is, at least I haven't seen, but you've seen a lot more people. They often get rich in one vehicle, and
Yeah.
then at some point they diversify. This whole notion of 7 streams of income, I think, is nonsense for the average person just starting out. I think you've
Yeah.
got to be focused and, be more focused than you think you should. And then
Yeah.
at some point in the future, diversify. But what say you?
Well, I think that's a very good point that you're making. Look, focus and concentration is what creates wealth. Diversification perpetuates wealth, but concentration creates wealth. And you want to just pick the best vehicle. And the most historically proven asset class in the entire world is income property. There simply is no competitor for it. And the reason is that it's a multidimensional asset class. where you do have multiple streams of income, or I should say wealth creation through income property. Just buy a fucking house, okay? Like, and rent it out, and you get appreciation, depreciation, tax benefits, equity buildup, inflation-induced debt destruction, leverage. That is your multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
You don't need to go out and do 7 different things. The property itself does so many things for you. There simply is no asset class that can compete with income property. It's the most favored asset class for wealth creation in world history. There literally is no competitor for it. And, I know you can have these shiny objects, and crypto can go up one week and down the next month, and, whatever. That's all great. It's got a, 15-year track record. Real estate has thousands of years of track record behind it. And I'm not saying don't do this other stuff, but I'm saying pick your vehicle to get rich in, and don't overcomplicate it. Just you buy 6 to 10 houses over the next couple of years. If you're rich, you can buy 6 or 10 today, or 100 today. We've got clients that are just starting out, that are beginners, and people that are very wealthy investing with Empowered Investor, my firm. And just be in the game. You'll be so surprised how well that can go in 5 years. Like, it massively will change your life. I just got a message from one of our clients who started investing with us in his 20s. His name is Mason, great guy. And, he was maybe, 25 when he started investing with us. He's got a whole bunch of properties now. And, he's now in his 30s. And he saw a thing that I posted where the average first-time buyer now is 40 years old. He's
Crazy.
way ahead. Just because he came to my conference and he started buying properties through my network, like, his whole life has changed. He's so far ahead, and he was so grateful. It was so nice to get a note from him like that. But
yeah, love positive feedback like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I know about you is you do as much reading as I do. I have a daily financial show at 7:30, but you actually take all these great articles and save them. So I'm going to pull up the slides, and why don't you talk about what was meaningful to you this week?
Yeah, so here are just a few things. This is there's a big debate about the 50-year mortgage, right? And I don't think it's really a debate. It's fantastic. It's a great tool used correctly for financial planning and inflation-induced debt destruction, which is the hidden wealth creator in real estate. And so it's interesting to see the different demographic cohorts and how they view the 50-year mortgage. Millennials, they're great with it. Gen Z, younger than them, is a little more conservative about the whole thing. They don't know yet. They're just buying their first home, hopefully now, but maybe not even yet. Gen X is my generation, and probably yours too. And there's how we view it. The boomers, very conservative, and really, that's the wrong word though. The most conservative thing is to have the lender invest most of the money in the deal. The least conservative thing is to put a lot of your own money into the deal. And if you have a shorter mortgage, you're putting more money in every month. And if you put more down or pay cash, you've got more money in the deal. You've got the most risk. You are literally the most risk-taking of anybody. You put less in the deal, you are the most conservative. Let the bank put the most money into the deal, right? So that's just interesting. The rich understand that this is a financial planning tool, and they should use it wisely. Okay, so here is another thing. Speaking of the rich, they understand currencies. So foreign investors think the US is becoming way more desirable. We may think our real estate is super expensive here, and there's a lot to be said for that. But a foreign investor thinks it's getting cheaper all the time because the dollar is weak. So versus their currency, this makes exports, US exports, cheaper for the rest of the world. And it's by design. This is on purpose. It makes exports cheaper to the rest of the world. So our export business and the trade balance gets more favorable to the US. And it brings in more foreign direct investment, otherwise known as FDI. And that's just people from foreign countries buying US real estate and paying property taxes to US governments and local governments, counties and cities. And so, that's one thing you definitely see. There's more on that. This is another interesting point, is that living alone is becoming far more common in some countries than others, right? And in
Oh,
the
wow.
US, we have like a record number of singles. Back like in the late 90s during that 2000 presidential election, do you know what the biggest voting block? It was not even recognized as a voting block.
Hmm.
It was single American adults.
Oh, interesting.
Over
Okay.
90 million strong. That's bigger than the baby boomers. That's bigger than the millennials, right? The two biggest cohorts, right? Singles are a voting block, okay? And you know, they're in the housing market and they're living alone, which creates more need for housing. Now, societally, I don't think this is a good thing, okay? You know, I've talked a lot about how there is real encouragement to create singleness, separateness, and increase the divorce rate. And the media and the government has done sadly a good job of that, right? Because marriage rates have been plummeting. Divorce rates are actually down, but that's only because marriage rates are down. You know, the biggest cause of divorce is marriage. Okay, if you don't get married, you're never going to get divorced, right? So the point of me saying this is, if you're a real estate investor, this means there's more and more demand. Okay.
Well, it also tells me that we should start building smaller and smaller homes.
True. Yes. Because back when I started in the business over 30 years ago, you know, a 1-bedroom was something you never wanted to buy.
Right.
Okay. Like if you could buy a 1-bedroom condo, it's like there's no market for that. You know, nobody's going to rent that from you. You know, my mom would tell me that, like, that's a terrible investment. You want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, right? That's the ideal. That is not really true anymore, because it's a different kind of market. It's a different kind of world we're living in. What else do I have here? Oh, I just thought this was good. You know, there's the rich, since that's the theme of today, they have mentors. They understand that statement that Tony Robbins makes: success leaves clues.
Yes.
And, you know, this is just a kind of a funny quote, right? Because it's addressing people's ego, really. There's no secret about success. Did you ever know a successful man who didn't tell you about it?
That's funny. That's good. Yeah, very cool.
So, you know, people who are successful, they want to brag about their success. And through that, through giving them recognition, you can learn a lot, right?
Yeah, it's really, I think this channel is a great example of that. Frankly, our friendship is an example of that, right? I built a Rolodex of millionaires who come back every week to talk shop, right? You and I'd speak 9 a.m. Mondays almost every week when we're not traveling. And again, we do it because we have fun, we riff on, we like to help people. So again, you know, you've been doing this 30 years, I'm almost 30 years, and their success leaves clues, and we like telling people about it. So I think that's right.
It definitely does. There's no question about that. So get some mentors, have them help you. Maybe this is the last thing I'll share today in terms of visuals, Michael.
Sounds good.
I mean, folks, just, you know, you listen to these doomers out there, they're going to ruin your life. Okay.
Yes.
And the way they ruin your life is by talking you out of doing something that makes sense. Okay. I'm not saying be careless, you know, be smart, obviously.
Do the work. Yeah.
Do the work. Yes, absolutely. But the people who make the money are not the spectators. Okay. You know, we can go to a sports game, and as spectators, we're watching all these people get paid zillions of dollars while we're sitting there eating a hot dog. Okay. And some peanuts. And, you know, the people who make the money are the ones who are in the game. You've got to be in the game. So don't let the doomers scare you off from being in the game. Look at these appreciation rates. This is from 2019. Okay. The appreciation rates, Knoxville, Tennessee, a linear market, 86% appreciation.
That's crazy.
I mean, this is insane. Think about this. If you were just a owner-occupant homeowner and you bought a home with 10% down.
I was just doing that math. You're up 900%.
You're up 900%, not including your tax benefits,
right,
not including inflation-induced debt destruction, meaning Your mortgage is cheaper to pay back over time, not including all of the other benefits. You're up 900%. Show me where else you can do that. And I know you're going to say Bitcoin. Okay.
No, I'm not. No, this is
I
my,
know
this
you're
is,
not. You're
this
because
is,
you're not a
oh,
speculator. Yeah.
this drives me crazy because again, I believe doomers, crash bros are evil.
Yeah.
Because their whole goal is to crush hope, create fear.
You're right.
And they do it for one selfish reason. They know that that creates clicks and they're able to pay their rent. These doomers are not rich.
Yeah.
These people are not wealthy. They are, they're just evil people who are comfortable causing you to do nothing.
Well,
and I think the fact they crush hope is sickening.
Yeah. So let's just examine another psychological element of the doomers and the crash bros and the people who are telling you the sky is always falling, right? Because look, the sky is always falling. Throughout history, you can always pick out several things that are extremely negative and should make you fear not to do something, right? You can always do that throughout history. This is not a new phenomenon, okay, that we have all these issues going on. I mean, just, I've got this book, well, they used to sit on my coffee table, and it was like the 100 years of the front page of the New York Times.
Oh,
and so occasionally I would flip through that and I'd be looking at, the New York Times in, I mean, can you imagine if it was, 1943, World War II is going on. If it was in the 30s, we were in the Great Depression. If it was in the 50s, you were probably pretty positive, but I'm sure you could have found tons of bad things.
Oh, I'm sure you could have found some bad stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always something, okay? But you've got to get in the game. These doomers, the psychological aspect of them, I also wanted to examine besides what you said, is they are almost always the people who didn't have the confidence to invest. These people are wimps. They're scared. They're just insecure people that lack self-confidence and they lack motivation. So they missed out. They missed out on the last boom. They missed out on the boom before that. They missed out on the cycle before that. And they're just angry.
Yeah,
and
it's actually that.
Misery loves company, folks. They want to pull you down to their level. Misery loves company.
The other thing I've started to know about these doomers as I peel back more of their stories is not only did they miss the last cycle, but there's a very good chance they were hurt in the last cycle or hurt somewhere in their life.
Right.
Maybe when they were growing up, mom and dad lost the house. Maybe you bought a house because you're a mortgage broker and you lost it because you didn't understand it was a bubble. So they have PTSD. They just have PTSD. Everything is on fire. There is no opportunity. You're going to get hurt just like I got hurt. And as opposed to extreme ownership in realizing, oh, maybe mom and dad had a drug problem. Oh, maybe I was built on a shaky foundation. Maybe there's some extreme, ownership that should be taken. But here's a quote that I like. Cynicism sounds smart in the short term, but optimism ultimately wins.
That's from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, right?
There you go.
I love that book. It's great. Yeah.
There you go. Well, great. Jason, you do a lot of amazing stuff. Where can people find you?
JasonHartman.com is my main website. You can find my podcast or my YouTube videos. Just type Jason Hartman in the search on any podcast platform or on YouTube. And Michael, I just want to give you a shout out because you're doing such great stuff, keeping it real with investors out there and, giving hope to people because, the market is turning in a very positive way since that last rate cut and activity is way up. Mortgage applications are way up. Refinance applications are up. And, don't miss it, folks. Do not miss the next opportunity to have a good cycle.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my boldest calls ever was calling August of 2025 the transactional bottom. And right now that call is looking amazing. So we'll see if it holds. Jason, you're amazing. We'll talk
in terms of sales volume, you mean, right?
Transaction.
I think you're right. That's about right. Yeah.
There you go. Thanks, Jason. Take care.